if Jesus is coming back from the dead after being crucified is proof that he is God, because only God conquers death, right? Mm-hmm. Then what do we do with Jonah? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد إليهم المهديين وسلم تسليما السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear sister Tiffany.
Walaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear father.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you too.
So today we're going to be talking about the topic of the sign of Jonah, and whether or not the sign of Jonah proves or helps prove that Jesus is God. And before we get into this topic, because we will be dealing with a lot of topics on this channel in the coming period that have to do with Christianity, and we do have a large audience on the channel also that comes from a Christian background or are Christians today. I think that at the outstart we have to say that our purpose here is not to offend anybody, nor is it to go to war against Christians at all, but rather to have an honest and open conversation together, us and our Christian audience members and the rest of the audience members, in order that we together as human beings can hopefully be guided by God to the truth. Mm-hmm. Certainly they believe, many of them would believe that they are upon the true path, and if they believe that with all of their heart and soul, then they must believe that they are going to paradise and that they're going to enjoy all of eternity in a place that's good, mm-hmm. in heaven, in paradise. And I would hope and I would expect that anybody who is truly a follower of Jesus Christ, that they would want to share that, that salvation, share the opportunity to be saved with anybody else who is sincerely seeking God. And certainly we are. Yeah. And also we are convinced in what it is that we believe. And at the same time, we want to share it with other people. But there are two types of people that are out there. Yeah. There are people that are set in their beliefs, and they don't move and they don't open their ears to listen to the truth, even if the truth comes knocking at their door or smacks them in the face. And there are other people whom are the companions of the evidence, companions of the proof. Wherever the proof goes, that is where they go. Yeah. So for me, when I look at the stories in the Quran, the stories and the verses in the Torah, the Old Testament, and in the Gospels, I think that one of the most common themes throughout the three books, the one thing that the three books agree on, is that people that are not open to hearing the truth, or people that are not open to changing their minds, people that don't have the ability to entertain a thought without fully accepting it until they reach the conclusion, the absolute conclusion. People that stick to the religion that they were born upon just because they were born upon it, or just because it makes them feel good without investigating or reading, these people are not liked so much by God, and they're not praised in any way, shape, or form. But rather, these three religions encourage us and tell us either directly, or through the stories of the prophets and the messengers, that, as long as we are alive and as long as we are breathing, we should be searching for the truth. And certainly the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam told us to question our religion until we are told that we are crazy, question and search for the truth, even if we have to, look for it in China. That's the starting point that I would like to begin from, with all of our viewers, and so that everybody tones down the aggression a little bit. Certainly, we are not going to get anywhere if, for example, I give a message and yet I'm calling my audience, the viewers or the people that I'm having a conversation with, or the people that I'm trying to share my viewpoint with. I'm not going to get anywhere if I'm calling them animals in human form, right? Or Canaanites or people of hell. And at the same time, they're not going to get anywhere if they are attacking Muslims or attacking our beliefs without giving it a fair chance, because one of us is right, or one of us is right and one of us is wrong, or we're both wrong, but we can't both be right. Yeah. Right? So that's the starting point where we want to begin from. The assumption that the other party is also equally as good as you are and is searching for the truth, and one of us is confused about something, so let's help the other with removing this confusion. And I don't think that it's going to happen necessarily overnight or after one episode, but perhaps after many conversations that we have together, we can reach the truth together. And so even though I'm convinced in what it is that I believe in, I'm totally willing to have an open mind. I always do. And I'm a companion of the proof and the evidence. Wherever it goes, I shall go. Even if it was to lead me to Christianity or to any other religion, I am happy to do so, because in the end, what we seek is God. We don't seek, to prove ourselves right.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think what you've said is very important. And even just from a Christian perspective, I think the Gospels are filled with many conversations between Jesus and the people who were seen as religious authorities of Judaism in his time. And there was this constant closed-mindedness that he was faced with, and that ended up being the stumbling block that kept people from accepting him as the Messiah. So just in the history of Christianity, we see that this was a huge issue. People being unwilling to accept ideas that seemed foreign to them, or that seemed like outside of the realm of expectation. So this is one of the reasons why Jesus was rejected. He came with sort of a new message, and he came teaching new things. And so I think that it's important to consider that, to have an open mind, because, I mean, if the story of Jesus teaches us anything, that's one of the things that it teaches us, that in order to reach the truth, you have to be willing to accuse your own faith.
Absolutely. And we shouldn't be afraid to accuse our own faith, right? Because the truth can always stand on its own, and the truth is always clear. Okay, let's start, shall we? Mm-hmm. So now we have Christianity. Christianity is a religion which is soaring with popularity.
Yeah.
Now, it's the largest religion in the entire world.
Yes.
It hasn't been for long, though. Not too long ago. It was actually overshadowed by Buddhism. Buddhism was the number one religion in the world. Now today, Christianity is, and Islam is coming up pretty fast, actually, behind it. Mm-hmm. You have, and you also have a kind of slight withdrawal in Christianity, more than a slight withdrawal, with a lot of countries and nations that used to be Christian turning atheist or agnostic. And one of the central message, I guess, of Christianity is that Adam and Eve sinned. A person cannot basically pay off his own debt in sin. It's impossible to do so because you need God in order to forgive you. He needs a sacrifice. He can't just forgive you from his own self. And, the wage for sin is death. So when Adam sinned against God, he brought death and suffering into the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the Israelites in Judaism, they used to, in exchange for sin, there would be these rituals whereby they would sacrifice these animals, as an offering to God.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so God, though he's kind and he's loving, but at the same time, he's just. Mm-hmm. He can't let sin go, because if he did let sin go, without having death in exchange, then he wouldn't be just.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. It exists and it has to be dealt with. And
It exists. It has to be dealt with. If there's something wrong that happens, it must be corrected. And the way to correct sin is death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's loving and he wants to forgive. He loves his kids. He doesn't want them to go to hellfire. He doesn't want them to die.
Yes. I mean, he gave the instructions on how to atone for sin and these things. So, of course, yes, he wanted that they atone for their sins.
Yeah. So then what must take place? God, according to Christianity, he comes down to the earth and he appears to the people in the form of Jesus Christ, to the Messiah. He is sinless, born of a virgin. All right. And the idea of the birth from a virgin also further emphasizes the fact that Jesus was not tainted by anything that is evil.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's this kind of or anything that's impure, because there's this idea also in Christianity that sex to, a large degree is also, there's this impurity that's surrounding it. And we're going to get into that and get into the virgin birth in a future conversation, inshallah.
Okay.
Okay. And then Jesus, he dies for people's sins. And so he is the sacrifice.
Yes.
He is the offering to God.
Mm-hmm. The ultimate offering.
He is the ultimate offering. So instead of offering an animal in exchange for the sin, God offers a perfect human being who is without sin.
Yes.
Because Jesus is without sin, he shouldn't have died. Right?
Yeah.
Because death is in exchange for sin.
Yeah.
But because he did die and he was crucified, God has to be just also. So he exchanges and ransoms for Jesus' death the sin of all those who believe in him.
Yes.
Okay. For all time. Not just for that time, but for all time, whoever it is that hears or, about Jesus having died for people's sins and believes in that, then they will be forgiven.
That is what's taught, yes, by the institutions, by the church, and that's what's written by the epistles of Paul, and it's in the Bible. So yes, that's the concept that they believe in, for sure.
And then, but at the same time, you have to believe not just that he was crucified, but that he actually overcame death.
Yes, he conquered death. Yeah.
That he conquered death. That he came back from death.
Yes.
And I guess the conquering of death also is kind of, the reason given is because he's God. So he's able to conquer death.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really die. Which is kind of, I guess, part of the issue why Jews and Muslims have such a big issue with it, because then the question arises of, is it even a real offering?
Right.
Yeah, because if God can't die, then how did he die?
Yeah, I understand the conundrum.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because then it's like a fake sacrifice.
Yes, I understand why the concept is a little bit confusing and not fully explained by Christians. Yeah, I mean, they say he's fully God and fully man, but yeah, it's a confusing concept, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. But let's move forward and we can come back to this point maybe in the future. But there is a question mark there.
Yes.
How can he be sacrificed? How can he die? when you're saying that he didn't die, that he actually conquered death, you know, and you're saying that he's God. God can't die, so how's that a sacrifice, you know? And if he conquered death, like, is that even a sacrifice anymore?
Yeah.
You know, let's assume that, okay, he did die, but then he came back. Yeah. But he's not supposed to come back, because the sacrifice or the offering is not supposed to come back. It's supposed to be gone, taken by God, because it's in exchange for sin. You're giving it. You're not supposed to take it back.
Yes. Right? Yes, of course, yeah. It's a completely different scenario playing out than all of the sacrifices that we're familiar with in Judaism. It's not like as if these sacrifices come back from the dead, or it's a completely different thing which took place according to the Christian narrative.
Yeah, and Muslims and Jews, they have a big problem because both of their scriptures, the Old Testament and the Quran, so the book and the words of the prophets that come before Jesus, and the word in the book of the prophet that comes after Jesus, you know, are all saying this is not possible. Mm-hmm. And this is against the very foundation of our religion. Jesus as a man is limited. Clearly, his needing to eat and drink, you know, his being born, and according to the Jews and the Christians, like him dying on the cross, you know, is proof also, of his limitations as a man. And Muslims also believe that, you know, even though the majority believe that he was taken up into the sky and that he'll descend in the future, they still believe that he's a man that will eventually get married and end up dying. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Yeah. So they say that, you know, God is unlimited. God is the opposite of these very things. Like, he is not born. Yeah. Nor does he give birth. Yeah. God, is self-sustaining. God does not pray to himself. Yes. Jesus prayed to the Father. Yes. And depended on the Father. Yes, absolutely. And asked the Father many things. Yes. Right? Yeah. And attributed all of the glory to his Father. Yes. God Almighty doesn't do this. God is the I am, who says, I'm the one who does. I'm the one who, Yes. God in the Old Testament, he issues very stern warnings against idolatry, and he destroys entire nations. And he is angered with nothing more than to have something worshipped as him or as a partner with him. Yes. Yeah. And the same thing with the Quran. The Quran is filled with verses where God is emphasizing on the fact that he is one, mm-hmm. and that there's nothing on the earth that's like him. Yeah. And issues a stern warning against those who claim that Jesus, the son of Mary, is the Son of God, or that God has taken a son, and people who are holding on to this belief or propagating this belief without, presumptuously, without evidence. Mm-hmm. God takes great offense to it, and he promises that the end of that is going to end up very, very bad. And so Jews and Muslims, I think, would love the idea of Christianity, and would, if there was no contradictions between the narrative and between their books and the words of all of the prophets and the messengers, with the exception of the authors of the New Testament, or the people that understand it in that way, who wouldn't want to believe in an idea that God was so loving and so merciful that he's offering you a chance, and all you have to do is believe that he was crucified on the cross, in exchange for your sins. Like, accept that, and you will never be burnt by hell. Yeah. That's a beautiful idea. It is beautiful. That's a beautiful religion. Yeah. Yeah. It is, as you said, beautiful. If it's true. Yeah. But if it's not true, then it's a very bad thing, because then I'm going to hold on to this false hope or false idea, and then in the end, I'm actually going to offend God. This is the problem that they have. And so the Muslims and the Jews, they're scared. They're scared of making God angry. This is what prevents them from being on the same page with Christians. Yeah. Nothing more and nothing less. Christians, Jews, Muslims, all of them are just seeking to please God and to be close to Him and to obey them. And all of them see themselves as children of Abraham, or at least friends and advocates of Abraham and his family.
Yes.
But it's complicated.
Yeah. It's complicated because the one who is wrong, it seems like if you believe in the Christian narrative, you're taking a huge gamble because there's all these contradictions to the scriptures of Judaism and the scriptures of Islam, and you would be angering God if you were to associate somebody with God when God had commanded not to do so. So it's a huge potential problem.
Yeah, it really is, and I mean, you have this Judaism whereby all the prophets and the messengers that came before Jesus, they're literally fighting other nations and wiping them out because they worshipped other than the one God. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And then you have in Islam, this prophet coming forward, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with great determination, and the motto of Islam being La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah.
Yeah.
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 And the surah of monotheism, being worth like 2/3 of the entire Quran. That's how important the message is. Say God is one.
Yeah.
God is everlasting.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have a son, and he doesn't give birth to anyone, and there's nobody who is equal to him.
Yeah.
And then you have the Christianity, the Christian narrative where we have to shift the focus off of the Father and put all of the focus on the Son, and we have to believe that the Son is God at the same time, and we have to believe that He's part of a Trinity of a 3 parts of God now, the Holy Spirit, that was previously in Judaism not thought to be God, and God, mm-hmm. the Father, and now the Son. And what does this all even mean?
Yeah. And it's not explained, to be honest. It's not explained. Jesus never spoke about a Trinity or, being that all these 3 entities were part of like a triune God. He never spoke about that. No. So, yeah, it's a conclusion drawn after the fact.
It is a conclusion that's drawn after the fact. And then there's all these other problems in there, which we're going to go, into each and every one of them one by one, but we're going to leave them for future episodes, but the whole compilation of the Bible, the role of Paul in it all, the beef and the problems that he had with Simon Peter, the contradictions between what Simon Peter and the disciples believed in and what Paul was propagating, and many of the themes or proofs that are used in the Bible, or referenced from the Old Testament that are sought out to prove this idea that Jesus is God. Mm-hmm. So we'll start with the story of Jonah.
Okay.
Because what happens is, and Christians get very excited about this because, and it really is quite fascinating when you look into it at the beginning, because, in Christianity in the New Testament, there are all these parallels and references, thousands of them, that kind of like match the Old Testament, So it's like Jesus will reference a story from the Old Testament, and the Christians would be like, see, he is the fulfillment of the Old Testament.
Yes, they're numerous.
See, this thing right here proves that Jesus is the living Lord, the living God, right?
Yes.
So we'll start going through them one by one. Today, let's talk about Jonah, because Jesus, at some point, he compares himself to Jonah.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it?
Sure. Okay. So he's talking to the Pharisees, and he's like having a debate with them. You know how his conversations typically were with the Pharisees. They would try and trip him up on matters of religion, and he said that they were asking him for a sign. So he said to them, "This nation will be given the sign of Jonah, and just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days, the Son of Man will be in the grave for 3 days." So he made a very direct comparison to himself and the story of Jonah.
Yeah. And then he says basically that, the people of Nineveh will testify against these people.
Exactly.
Why? Because they repented, at least, but these people are not repenting.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if they did repent, then there's no reason to testify against them.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, these guys are going to be disbelievers. My nation are, even though I was greater than Jonah.
Yes, you're something greater than Jonah. Yes.
Yeah. And yet the people of Nineveh, they believed,
and they repented.
Yeah.
So
so let's examine then the story of Jonah real quick and try to see, how this proves basically that Jesus is, or if it does prove that Jesus is God, etc. So the story of Jonah is what? The story of Jonah is that Jonah, he was sent by God to a people. Mm-hmm. And he was commanded by God to carry out this task of warning them. Mm-hmm. And he warns them a bit, but he decides he doesn't want to do this anymore, and he runs away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He is escaping destiny and disobeying God.
Yeah.
And then he goes forward and he escapes to sea, and he tries to board the ship. He basically hitchhikes a ride with some sailors in order to escape and go to a different land.
Yes.
But God is angry about this, and so God judges Jonah. And what he does is he causes a whale to swallow Jonah for 3 days and 3 nights.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
The question arises of okay, well, what happens to Jonah? Does he survive or does he die? People are split in regards to this opinion in Islam and also in Judaism and Christianity. Okay? Some people believe that he remained alive, while other people say, no, he definitely died. Okay. And the reason why they usually think that he was alive is just because he's talking and has, conscious awareness of what's happening, in the whale. But the reason why people think that he died is because he himself literally says that, when he was in the grave, he says, when he was in Sheol, the grave, when he was dead, he cried out to the Lord. All right. So he himself states that he went to the grave, and the grave is not except for, people that are dead. And also that's besides the fact that it would be physically impossible for people to stay alive inside of the belly of a fish, mixing with the stomach acids or even just being inside of its mouth, which is constantly opening and closing in the middle of the ocean for 72 hours.
Yeah, it seems that from our that's a physical impossibility. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it is a physical impossibility. Yeah, so. There's also narrations or hadiths from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, which talk about the story of Jonah, and they add on to it some information that's left out of Jonah's own account in the Old Testament. Okay. And basically the hadith states that while he was in there, he actually met with some of the other characters that were in hell. Okay. One of them being Korah. Okay. And Korah was the guy who was leading the rebellion against Moses. Yeah. And basically Korah asks him, he says, hey, who are you? and is that you, Jonah? And he identifies himself. He's like, yeah, it's me, Jonah. And he says, it's me, Kota. What's going on? What's happening up there? What's taking place? And he's asking him about, what's happening and sharing with him in this account, his misery for being down there and in the pit of hellfire.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
In the realm of the dead.
Yeah. Okay, so he made it to the realm of the dead.
Yeah, he made it to the realm of the dead. So Jonah is now in the realm of the dead. Korah got swallowed by the earth. Mm-hmm. Jonah is taken by the whale into the belly of the earth.
Wow.
Right? This one got swallowed into the land. This one gets swallowed into the sea. But the same thing, they're at the end of the day, they're in the belly of the earth. They're in the realm of the dead, and he's communicating with him. Okay. And then after his conversation with Korah, he ends up repenting and begging God for mercy and, saying, there is no God but you, glory be to you. I was of the wrongdoers.
Yes.
Yeah. And because of that repentance of Jonah, God basically brings Jonah back from the dead and causes the fish or the whale to spit out Jonah onto the shore. And other narrations mention that, his body and flesh is all eaten up and basically disfigured, and he has to lay there on the shore, kind of, eating from the plants that are around him and staying under the shade of other plants in order, until he gets better. And when he eventually gets better, he goes back to his people.
Okay. Yes, because of course the whale would begin to digest his body. So his body would be not in condition to just come back to life, one would assume. So,
yeah. Now we have Jesus comparing himself to Jonah.
Yes.
And we have to go now to the, to examine this very carefully and try to understand, why would he tell the Pharisees this? Okay, they're disbelievers, and the people of Nineveh were disbelievers. Mm-hmm. If he's comparing himself to Jonah, well, Jonah was a messenger. And, certainly in the Islamic viewpoint, Jesus is also a messenger. Mm-hmm. Okay? Jonah was caused to die for 3 days and came back from life and appeared again. Jesus, according to the Christian narrative,
yes.
He also died and he came back after 3 days.
Yes.
The only question would be is that if Jesus is coming back from the dead after being crucified is proof that he is God, because only God conquers death, right? Mm-hmm. Then what do we do with Jonah?
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, because also Jonah would have conquered death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So where is the comparison? Did Jonah also go into the belly of the whale in exchange for the sins of the people of Nineveh?
I mean, that's certainly not the understanding of the story, no.
So Jesus conquers death, okay, but so did Jonah. Jonah also conquered death, right?
Yes, he did. He died for 3 days, was swallowed by a whale, and then God commanded the whale to spit him out, and then he was back.
Maybe people would say, oh, well, but Jonah was escaping the command of God, and therefore he was being judged. And for that reason, he went into the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. But somebody could also argue and say that that's exactly what Jesus did too. That Jesus in the New Testament, he gets on his knees and he begs God to remove this cup from him.
Yes,
just as Jonah wanted to escape the mission that he had from God, Jesus too wanted to escape the mission that he had from God. And right afterwards, the result that Jesus faced was the same result that Jonah faced. Each one of them wanted to escape from the mission that they had. And as a result of that, each one of them gets swallowed into the earth, being caused to die. And the assumption would be then that just as, Jonah was forgiven and brought back by God, Jesus is greater than Jonah. And so therefore, after Jesus is judged in the underworld, he also is forgiven and brought back to life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely draw a parallel between what happened in these two stories. I mean, the prayer that Jesus made to God, the pleading that he made to God to lift the cup from him, can't really be ignored in this case, because it does parallel also the story of Jonah, where he didn't want to complete the mission that God had given him. So yes, absolutely.
So the story itself, it doesn't seem to prove at all that in any way, shape, or form that Jesus is God. Actually, the parallel that Jesus draws between him and Jonah, it almost seems to be like Jesus is trying to prove for future generations that he is man, that he is a messenger, that he too is judged by God, that he too can make mistakes like Jonah did. Right?
Yeah.
Or else why compare yourself to Jonah?
Yeah. I mean, if you are God, then why compare yourself to a mere messenger? It doesn't make sense that you would.
And if you are God, why are you trying to escape from yourself or from your own command?
Yes. Pray to yourself to lift your own command from yourself.
If Jonah was God, why would Jonah give himself a mission but then try to escape from the mission? Same thing with Jesus. If Jesus was God, why would Jesus give himself the mission of coming into this world for the sole purpose of being a sacrifice in order to atone for the sins of all mankind that believe in him? But at the same time, when he comes to the most important, vital point, the whole point of why he came to the earth in the first place, he decides that he wants to escape from that by objecting to his own self and saying, I know that I'm God, and I know that you sent me, and I know that you're in me and I'm in you, and that we're one. But at the same time, please remove this cup from me. I don't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah. It defies logic.
Why did you come? What is the purpose? Well, there has to be another purpose, or else why would Jesus want that the cup be removed?
Yes. If that was the sole purpose of what he was meant to do, then it doesn't make sense that he would make that. It makes sense
for him to ask for the cup to be removed if his purpose was to come and rule as the Messiah, and then the people are objecting to him and not listening to him, but that's the reason why he was sent, and now they're going to kill him. Then yes, it makes sense that, Jesus says, well, I haven't, fulfilled my mission yet with the people. Please, God, remove this cup from me. Don't allow them to kill me, and give them a chance, or give me a chance that I may fulfill that which I came for. But for you to come only for the sole purpose of, having everybody's sins and save them in that way, and about it, and you've been drawing all these parallels before to prove that that's the reason why you came, and then in the end to try to escape from that destiny, well, for sure, that would deserve, if that was the case, it would deserve, first, it wouldn't make sense that you would be God, but let's say you're a messenger and that's the purpose why you came. For sure, you objecting to that would necessitate also that God punishes you for 3 days and 3 nights, or judges you at least.
Yeah. I can't argue with the logic. It's,
or in the case that Jonah didn't die and he stayed alive for 3 days and 3 nights, but was just put in the whale, but he didn't experience death and was not resurrected, then the parallel that Jesus draws was basically to say that I too didn't die, and I too am alive. And then that kind of negates the whole idea of there being a sacrifice, because there's no sacrifice anymore, because Jesus didn't really die.
Yes.
And Jonah didn't really die.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no way around it, basically. No matter which way you think about it,
it kind of disproves.
Yeah.
Yeah. It proves that Jesus is man. It proves that he's a messenger. It proves that he can object to God like Jonah did. That's all that it proves.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, when you contemplate deeply over the words of Jesus and what it actually means, it's a little bit different than what they lead you to think.
Even the idea of a resurrection proving, or, a resurrection proves that Jesus is God, because only God can conquer death, is a strange one. It's a strange logic too. That's contradicted by Christianity itself. I'm not even going to talk about Judaism and Islam at this point, because there are other characters in Christianity that are resurrected. Yeah,
like Lazarus and those who are resurrected in the New Testament, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not really talking about them. I'm talking about other prophets and messengers.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Like in the book of Revelation, there is this, mentioning of two witnesses that are coming forward before the second coming of Christ. And they testify to him. All right? And they testify and they, prophesize to the nations. And these two individuals are thought in Christian theology and writings to be two prophets. Some believe them to be Enoch and Moses. Others believe them to be Elijah and Moses. That Elijah and Moses come forward. They're resurrected from the dead, just like those two witnesses were with Jesus at the scene of the transfiguration. The idea is that they are resurrected and come in the future and prophesize before the coming of Christ. Even in the time of Jesus himself in the New Testament, the Jews are asking if he is the coming of, Elijah or Jeremiah or the prophets. So
Yes.
This idea of prophets overcoming death and coming back again to the earth, being resurrected, is not, one that would necessarily prove that only God can do that.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. It's not exclusive to Jesus.
No.
And, yeah. So then, therefore, it takes away the meaning that they attach to it, being that Jesus must be God because he overcame that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it also, you have to wonder, who's greater? Is if we're going to talk about resurrection as a proof that of the greatness of one prophet over the others, or one individual, or the divinity of an individual over all other people that have came and spoken the Lord in the name of the Lord, who is greater? I mean, is Jesus greater, who came and was crucified and then came back and then ascended, or is Elijah greader, who didn't have to go to the belly of the earth at all?
Right.
He didn't have to go to the bad place and hang out with Quran and all of the bad people. He went straight up to the heavens above. He was taken in a chariot of fire, and remains alive to this very day.
Yeah.
Right? According to the Christians and the Jews.
I mean, that's a fair question. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So if Elijah is still alive and he was taken straight up to the Lord from before Jesus, then what's the uniqueness in regards to Jesus being taken up to the Lord?
I can't provide a suitable answer because there are so many holes in the logic of what they believe and what they teach. It doesn't add up.
But you before, thinking as a Catholic, you've been raised your entire life Catholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you are a devout Catholic too. You're not just like a normal person. You attended church.
Mm-hmm.
you played Mary in the church plays, right? You sang in the choir. You attended the Bible studies, right? Like you believed with all of your heart and soul.
Yeah.
So, and you only changed your belief much later in life.
Yeah.
Just a few years ago.
Like 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah. The majority of my life, yes, I was Christian.
So then what?
I think there are many aspects of the religion that you accept when you're taught it, and you don't fully think through the logic. And that was one of the things about this faith that I found different about anything that I had ever encountered before, because it actually asked me to think through all of the logical aspects of what I believed. And when I did so, I found that there were so many holes in the logic. And for me, that was a problem, and it set me searching for what were the true answers to these problems. So yes, I have no suitable answer for the things that you've brought up, because they don't make sense. They're just things that many people accept because they've been taught it their whole life,
yes.
But they never questioned it.
Okay, so you are from a Catholic background.
Yes.
Parents on both sides and their families are Christian.
Yeah.
I come from a mixed background. From my father's side, they are all Muslim. And from my mother's side, they are all Christian. Just like Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, whose father is one of the Imams, Al-Hasan al-Askari alayhi salam, and whose mother is Nergis, who was a Roman, Christian princess.
Yes.
Right? So he comes from those backgrounds. I come from those backgrounds, the mixed background. You come from fully Christian background.
Yes.
So you thinking from the Christian background and me thinking from my mother's side and all the people that I knew and my upbringing that, that gave me the ability to explore both faiths. It doesn't make sense to me that the story of Jonah and the sign of Jonah in the belly of the whale and Jesus in the belly of the earth, it doesn't seem to prove anything except the opposite of
what they say it means.
What they say it means. Do you have an answer, thinking as a Catholic?
I really don't. I also agree that it doesn't make sense when we've gone through all of the points of what it actually means and all of the parallels of the story. When we drew all of the parallels between Jesus and Jonah, the logic doesn't add up. It doesn't prove to me by logic that Jesus was God. It definitely does not do that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. God bless you. And I guess for now, we'll just have to see this as one point in the Bible that proves that Jesus was a messenger. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's carry on. And we encourage everybody to, make comments and to explain to us their point of view. And certainly we're going to do our best to read every single comment that's placed. Yeah. Okay. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you for having this discussion with me today. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Alaikum salam.